This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my honor. You're going to acknowledge me.
Welcome to the current state of WWE, guys. It is a Monday night, and as we speak, Monday Night Raw is going on. So, as always, guys, just a disclaimer, we have no idea, as of this recording, what is going on Monday Night Raw. I do have fireworks going outside my house, so if you hear bangs, it's not gunfire. No worries, it's the fireworks. But Anthony DeMarco joins us as always, and we're about to talk about a few of the results about Money in the Bank. And Anthony, how you doing, man? How'd you like the premium live event?
You know what? We came on here last week and we kind of, or maybe I did, kind of downplayed it. Didn't really feel all that important. But I felt it overall. It kind of achieved. I don't like that no singles championship aside from the U.S. and the SmackDown Women's title were defended. I don't like when, major championships aren't defended. Obviously, 2 world titles tied up with Roman Reigns. IC title was not on the show and hasn't been on a premium live event since WrestleMania of last year. But, considering all that, I think it really probably overachieved. That's not to say that I think that it was, an A-plus pay-per-view, but obviously the swerve with the winner of the men's Money in the Bank and the swerve with what happened with the women's Money in the Bank, I think it sent everyone home probably more content that they thought they would have been leading into the premium live event.
I think so too. I gave the pay-per-view as a whole like a B, even a B plus. Just because of the wrestling, the actual wrestling on the show. Regardless of storyline, I really enjoyed the in-ring quality, especially the tag team match between the Usos and Street Profits. I'm just jumping on the bandwagon here, and you guys heard my review yesterday regarding that, and I absolutely thought it was one of the best tag team matches in recent memory. Just amazing, and so that certainly helped. And most matches, I really don't know if there were any matches that you were like, wow, that was terrible. I can't think of any, and so the wrestling quality was there. I think they had some solid outcomes, and let's start with Liv Morgan winning the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. Did you like this outcome? Did you expect it? What was your pick?
I was thinking Becky Lynch just for probably all the same reasons you were. I believe that was your selection as well. Mm-hmm. I thought that, I just think the Money in the Bank is kind of tailor-made for a heel to win, kind of like the Royal Rumble is tailor-made for a babyface to win. And I just think Becky Lynch would have done a lot with the Money in the Bank briefcase. And I thought that she's, has enough star power to have carried it for a while. Because I think WWE historically, although the women's Money in the Bank has only been around since, 2017, I believe, when Carmella won it. And she was the first one to hold it. Aside from her, who carried it all the way until, the following April, following WrestleMania 34, they really don't give the Money in the Bank briefcase holders on the women's side a lot of time. And obviously that didn't change this year, but we'll get to that. And I thought Becky Lynch would have been someone that you could have given a long run to. But, Liv Morgan, you can make the case no woman star has rised as much in terms of stock as she has over the last, let's say, 12 months or so. The crowd has really been behind her, especially when she came close to winning the Raw Women's Championship against Becky Lynch. I believe that was at Royal Rumble this past year. And I think she was kind of like a safe pick because I think a lot of people have been clamoring for Liv Morgan for quite some time. And I think that even though, let's say, guys like you and me wanted Becky Lynch, I think the fact that Liv Morgan was the one to win it made it kind of like a soft landing. And then obviously she cashes in that same night on Ronda Rousey. Excuse me. And, I don't mind it. I like that she won the championship. My only issue with this is that it seems to be a recurring theme with women Money in the Bank holders. Because I believe since 2017, that would make this, the 5th time or the 6th holder. It's the 3rd time that a woman has cashed in that very same night to win the championship. And aside from that, you had last year Nikki ASH, easy enough for me to say, cash it in less than a month later on Charlotte Flair. I'm blanking on who the other star was who won it, but it just seems that they really don't give a lot of runway for the women who win the Money in the Bank briefcase. Oh, it was actually Asuka. And Asuka didn't even hold the championship. She was awarded the title the very next night from Becky Lynch on Monday Night Raw. So, I mean, aside from the fact that, they don't really give women a chance to roll with the Money in the Bank briefcase, which I think is kind of like a disrespect to them, I think that Liv Morgan was the safe pick, and I'm happy to see her get a run with the SmackDown Women's Championship.
There's really few people that I've talked to or seen that have felt that Liv Morgan doesn't deserve at least a chance here, and she is the proverbial bride, but never, or bridesmaid, but never a bride. I mean, they even said that right on the air, and it's true. She's one of the few that haven't had a chance to become champion. And I think the match itself was good. I thought there was some sloppy spots, some scary spots. I mentioned my review last night with the Becky Lynch Asuka spot where Becky jumped off a ladder and Asuka was laying on a ladder and like her ass like hit Asuka right in the ribs. I'm like, I don't know what you're going for here. Like it was just a weird spot. I'm like, and I was like, oh, you saw Asuka like bent over in pain. I'm like, I bet you that's legit. But overall, I think the match quality was fine. I didn't hate it. I thought it was good effort, but it didn't blow me away. That said, I think, Liv Morgan, while she wasn't my pick, Becky Lynch was mine, is, like you said, you can't really go wrong with that. And then having her cash in, my concern is that she's a transitional champion, that they're just making her champion to appease the fans that have said she hasn't got an opportunity yet. And then in a month, Bayley comes back and, takes it from her, and it's Ronda and Liv or something, or Ronda and Becky, and then Liv goes into the background again. I mean, that's my concern, is that they're giving her a super short run with this, and just to appease the fans. And then that's it. And they'll get back to the grown-ups, as they probably would put it. And I hope not. I hope Liv gets a fair shake at this, that they don't just make her a monthly champion and she's gone. But that said, in the moment here with Ronda Rousey, I was actually rooting, even though I like Liv, and I was like, oh, it's a feel-good kind of underdog moment. I was rooting for Ronda Rousey to tap her out with the ankle lock. I actually thought it was going to happen. The reason I wanted it to happen is because I wanted to see Ronda Rousey turn heel in that moment, which would have turned her immediately heel. That's what and you could hear the crowd booing. And I was like, oh, please tap out Liv. I think it would have been worth the sacrifice of seeing the crowd crap all over Ronda. And once she didn't do that, she got kind of a sloppy roll up on Ronda. It wasn't the cleanest thing, but it got the job done. And then afterwards, Ronda just kind of hands the belt to her and is a good sport about it. I was waiting for the Ronda to like, hit her in the back, put her in an armbar. Nothing. We didn't see Ronda be Ronda, and I was kind of disappointed. I guess I'm just frothing at the mouth to see Ronda Rousey as a heel. They had two perfect opportunities last night to do it, and they didn't do it. So now we get kind of this wishy-washy, lukewarm, babyface Ronda Rousey, who is, I don't know where she's going. I thought it was going to be Bayley. Who knows? But I don't know. Were you thinking that like they could turn her heel here?
Well, I've been thinking that for a while. Like, I was extremely surprised when they brought her back as a babyface this year, because I thought that entire run leading into WrestleMania 35 was kind of turning her heel without maybe doing it officially. And, Liv is just the ultimate babyface right now. Like, the crowd is so behind her. She kind of has like that sympathy behind her as well. And I felt that for a while. I don't know how far out she is, but I think Bayley is coming back relatively soon. And I just feel like she's going to be on a collision course with Ronda at some point, one way or another. And when Bayley comes back, not to say that I want her to go back to the Bayley buddies and back to her former character, but I just feel like almost by osmosis, she's going to be a major babyface. Like, when her music hits, I feel like everyone is going to go ballistic, and I think that WWE is fooling themselves if they think that she's going to come back and be a heel and as hot of a heel as she was in 2020 during the pandemic era. And I just think that if she goes head-to-head with Ronda, it's really going to flip the script. So, I mean, look, I think the crowd is ready to boo Ronda Rousey. I think that she could have a very Brock Lesnar-esque vibe going if she were to turn heel. But for whatever reason, probably because of the name value and the draw value, WWE's hell-bent on keeping her heel, unfortunately, or keeping her babyface, rather, unfortunately.
Yes, like, and I always use this example. It's an extreme example, but it's a perfect example of when a hot heel leaves. The crowd doesn't care when they come back or remember that they were a heel. They cheer them out of respect and saying, "Hey, we missed you." And the best example of that is Triple H in '02, Madison Square Garden, one of the most famous returns of all time. He left as the hottest heel in the company, and he came back as the biggest babyface in the company. And I think it was an 8-month return or 8-month gap. And Bayley was one of the hottest woman heels in WWE. And you're right, no matter what, I don't care what the scenario is, Bayley coming back will get a massive reaction. And Seth Rollins also had that same thing happen. Unfortunately, WWE was dumb enough to turn him heel. I think it was at Extreme Rules against Roman Reigns or something. He came back.
Yep.
And the crowd was all over it, like, "Oh, this is awesome. Seth is going to be a hot babyface." And WWE went the opposite way, and we're like, "What are you doing?" And because they were ready to cheer Seth. But anyway, the same thing's going to happen here with Bayley. And what I want to see, if they do Bayley Ronda for the title, not for the title, at SummerSlam, which you'd presume is the biggest match they could put together, on the SmackDown side, I want to see what the crowd does in a stadium with Ronda and Bayley. I really am very interested to hear what that reaction is, because I think the tide is going to turn, that WWE, no matter what they try to do with Ronda, trying to keep her baby face or whatever, it's not going to matter. I think people are ready for Ronda to either go away or turn, and for Bayley to return, and they've missed her. So I think SummerSlam's a perfect opportunity to do it. I'm not seeing any evidence of WWE turning her heel, because they continue to just give us the babyface Ronda. There's no hints. There's nothing. And if you didn't hear the crowd reaction, you'd go, "Yeah, there's nothing, no change." It's the crowd, I think, that's driving this, and hopefully the fans can will WWE to turn her. But I think the fans, if they try a Ronda babyface Bayley heel match at SummerSlam, I think that WWE is going to have a big shock right in their face about the fact that, no, we're not having this. We're cheering Bayley and booing Ronda. I think that's a strong possibility in a stadium at SummerSlam.
Yeah, and the other part about this is that you would have to assume that what's her face, Liv Morgan, is going to be involved, right, now that she's the SmackDown Women's Champion. And I have really no idea where they're going for SummerSlam, especially with the Raw side as far as the women go. Like, I know you've talked about it, but like Bianca Belair is really starting to feel stale. I hope that whenever she gets healthy, Rhea Ripley will take the title off of her. I think it's almost kind of like long overdue at this point, especially with how good Rhea Ripley has been since joining Judgment Day. But obviously Judgment Day has really fallen flat since kicking out of the group. Mm-hmm. But that's an entirely different story.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's a good way to kind of shift gears. Like, do you think that Judgment Day just kind of died in the cradle?
It's on life support. I mean, it was one of the hottest, most interesting, bright, like shining lights of Raw. They boot Edge for no apparent reason. I still don't agree with. And actually, now it's been long enough, people will cheer Edge. I think it's actually reached that threshold when he returns. People will cheer him. I mean, that's just the way we work as fans. And I think that same principle we just talked about with Bayley is going to apply to Edge when he returns. But yeah, I mean, it hasn't been on. They haven't been on Raw in like 3 weeks now. I don't know. Again, tonight on Raw, as we're recording this, guys, we still don't know. So perhaps they brought them back into the fold on TV. They might have, but they were awesome. Hot heels. Edge was brilliant, bringing in stars under his wing, and then they boot Edge, make Finn Balor, I guess, the de facto leader, probably more people joining, and then Rhea Ripley gets injured. Apparently it's some kind of dental injury. I don't know the exact diagnosis, but that's the rumors anyway, or that it's some kind of dental injury and something she needs to get fixed. So I hope that, you know, she does have enough time to recover to come back in time for SummerSlam, and hopefully Rhea beats Bianca at SummerSlam. That's what I want. But is it dead? I mean, it's on life support, to answer your question, and I think that once Edge returns and presumably faces Finn Balor at SummerSlam, that's probably where they're going. It's Rhea, Bianca, Edge, and Finn. Do you see that as a likely main events for SummerSlam?
Yeah, I could see that. And, I'm glad you brought up Finn. And, like, I know I'm in the minority here, but, like, I find Finn Balor incredibly stale. I don't really, like, I know everyone has always liked him, and he's a hell of a talented in-ring competitor. I'm not taking that away from him, but there's something about Finn Balor that to me, like, and I know I'm way off in, like by myself here, way off on an island, but, like, when Finn Balor comes on, like, it's almost channel changing. Like, I just do not find him interesting at all. And I know a lot of that is creative related. I'm not saying that solely on him, but there's just something about him for whatever reason that I just don't find him interesting and I don't find him captivating. And I just, when he shows up, I'm just like, same thing. I don't like his entrance, to be honest, and I know that that's one of his strong points, but I don't find his entrance cool. And maybe it was because I was so high on Judgment Day that now that Finn Balor took his place, I'm, like, even more resentful. So, like, I don't know, like, even, like, Finn Balor versus Finn, Finn Balor versus Finn, Finn Balor versus Edge, like, I just don't want to see it because for whatever reason, and I know I'm off on an island here. I know I'm the weird one. I hope everyone understands that. I recognize that. But for whatever reason, I just have zero time for Finn Balor.
I love it. No. It's good. I understand. I'm trying not to change my opinion of Finn, just because, like, I guess I've just blindly bought into the general group think that he's an underrated performer, that he should be main event, that he's really good on promos. So I'm resisting, guys. And it's. Now, again, I'm not trying to go into a big thing about Finn because I want to ask next about the men's Money in the Bank. But Finn Balor, I think, is a guy that you actually could create a decently long run as champion with him. And I'm not saying it'd be 6 months even like 3 months or so. You could have a nice run with him and just be able to see what he can do as champion. Now, he famously was the first Universal Champion, got injured. We all know that story. But I want to see what he can do as the, I guess, de facto leader of Judgment Day and facing Edge. We all know the match with Edge is going to be awesome. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I mean, I absolutely think that could be a potential match of the night contender for, again, if that happens. But Finn Balor is a guy that, yeah, I mean, I guess I get it. Like, his entrance is the big thing. The other thing is, to be fair, they haven't really given him the microphone at all over the last, year. I mean, he barely talks. The infamous rope break with Roman Reigns was the last thing we all remember relevant about him. If they don't allow him to speak, character development is very difficult, and he just becomes kind of this rerun of himself, of coming out. He does his little entrance with the lights, and everyone swings their arms and hits the person next to them into the face, in the crowd, and like that's about it, and we know he's good in the ring. He has a washboard abs, and that's about it, right? Like, and I get it. He's not a super deep character. So anyway, so I'll ask you about men's Money in the Bank ladder match, and I also want to ask if you have anything about Finn first, and then comment on Theory winning the men's Money in the Bank ladder match.
Look, I like Theory. Like, I think that they have something special with him. I don't know if he's like the next John Cena or next Randy Orton type of level star, but I just think that maybe they rushed this a little bit, which, obviously WWE is notorious for doing. Much like the Judgment Day, swerve by kicking out Edge. I don't disagree with going that route eventually, just way too soon. And I think maybe they pulled the trigger on Theory a little too early here. And again, not just because of him, but I just think that there were other people that were much more deserving of this and would have made more of it than him, like Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins most notably. And Theory, like, look, he's going to be in the main event one day. We know he belongs in the main event one day. I think he's he's overachieved, and I'm happy that they're recognizing him. And I do like the fact that they're pushing young talent. Like, I find that cool. I find that they've really gotten behind Theory. I don't know if that was the right time. And I feel like maybe you could start venturing into resentment territory from some fans if they start detecting okay, so what now? It's going to be all Theory all the time. And we know that I guess Vince most specifically has a bad habit of doing things like this, where he's just like, oh, this is working, shove it down their throats, like they did with the Bloodline. And I think that maybe they're starting to venture into those waters with Theory. But do I hate it? Not really, because I think that he was eventually going to get there, just probably came a bit too early. And look, I'm curious to see where they go with this in terms of how he's going to do the cash in. Is he going to do it for one title or both titles? I hope to God it's one title and we could split them back to the way they're supposed to be, because we desperately need at least one world title on at least one show. And it feels like Raw has not had a world champion since Brock Lesnar won it back in February at Elimination Chamber, because as soon as he won it, all he did was show up on SmackDown with the title, and it felt like a completely SmackDown exclusive program going into WrestleMania. So there's good and bad with it. I don't extremely love it. I don't extremely hate it. I'm just pretty neutral and decently okay with it.
This is... I don't think I would have felt so blah about this pick if Seth wasn't in the match.
Yeah.
Like, that's the biggest problem I have, is that Seth Rollins is in the match and that he didn't win. I want to see Seth as champion so badly that Theory winning, even though I understand it and I don't hate it, to me automatically makes me sour on it, because Seth should have won that. And now Seth, I guess you could say he took the L here, even though he wasn't. Everybody took the L as a collective, other than Theory. But that's, I think, why I'm so blah on it, is not that I don't understand Theory winning. It's just that Seth didn't win. And so just because I think Seth, I really have no idea. I want to talk to somebody about this in WWE and be like, what the hell? Why? Like, you guys have a guy that is proven main event, finally understands his character, is excellent on promos, in ring is otherworldly, he's polished, he's never done anything to hurt the company from a PR perspective. I mean, other than I think he's got some leak photos out there, but who doesn't? Other than that, the guy has done nothing wrong, and he is everything that you'd want him to be from a company perspective, and he's a proven commodity. He's not a maybe or a diamond in the rough. The guy is right there in his prime, and they just, I don't know what it is. Maybe it is the Roman Reigns syndrome with Vince McMahon of like, I've got a shiny new toy. This is my new Roman. And I don't know. If I was going to pick who should beat Roman, I'm still on board with Seth, because of the history, because he's still young, because they can still use that to make Seth even like elevate him further. However, Theory beating Roman, if that's the road they're going, I have to eat my words, because he checks every box that I said somebody beating Roman Reigns should. So if I'm eating my words, he's young, check. He's a proven champion. Okay, I kind of check that. He's the United States champion, or was, and I think he held that nice. He actually felt like a champion, so check that. He can talk. Check. He looks the part. Check. And he's certainly young enough to make it where he could use this as a foundation to springboard his career. So he checks all the damn boxes. The only problem I have is that he's a heel, and you really want a heel match where the champion, the chip then goes to just another heel. So there's that. That's really the only hurdle that they have. So I guess I have to eat my words on that, but I just want Seth to be the one to beat Roman so we can move the hell on, and that's the reason I'm sour on the pick.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing I would flip to you is, do you think it's for both championships, and would you rather just be one?
No. I you know what? This is where I'd be okay with them, even though they told us it was unified, that somehow that when Seth, or when Theory beats Roman, it's just for the WWE Championship. I actually I'll give them a pass on this one, just because I want a champion on Raw. Like, even if they're
bad,
like, I mean, like, I hope that they explain it, because they're the ones that told us that it was unified. They told us it was the biggest match ever in the history of WrestleMania. I mean, it was an absolute joke when it was promoted. It wasn't executed well. To me, that was like one of the worst matches that those two had together. I mean, it wasn't great, especially when you tell the people right away that's the biggest WrestleMania match of all time. You're making a mistake right from the beginning. But I don't care how it happens. Honestly, I will give whoever a pass on anything just to get a champion on Raw, and we can just get back to having somebody on Raw. Roman can keep his Universal and go on his 20,000 day run, or however long it's going to be. and you know, at least we have a champion on Raw, and then we can have guys compete for that championship like Seth or whoever. You know, but it's just right now it's tough, and it's becoming a burden. I'm sure to the guys, and it's becoming a burden as a viewer. You're like, well, that's if Roman's not here, he's never on SmackDown. He doesn't even show up to pay-per-views anymore. It's like 1 out of every 2 pay-per-views he's on, and 1 out of every 4 SmackDowns he's on, and 1 out of every 8 Monday Night Raws maybe that he shows up on, if at all. So you know, it's becoming to the point where okay, we get it, but we need a champion on Raw. There's a breaking point, and I think we're there.
Yeah, and I think that's why when people say, well, Brock did it, why didn't you care? And and in my head, I'm saying yeah, but when Brock did it, aside from his first run, which stretched from, and his first run, I mean, back when he returned, when he beat Cena for the Undisputed title at SummerSlam 2014, it's twofold. A, it was his first run with the belt, so we were all just it was new, right? He hadn't won the championship before since returning to the company 2.5 years prior. And secondly, he only held it for 6 months. So yes, he was kind of an absentee champion, but I think that it didn't sour as fast as Roman because he hasn't held it for as long. And with Brock, I actually think he was appearing more, quite frankly. It feels like when Brock was holding the world titles and he was an absentee champion, he was appearing more than Roman is right now, and certainly defending it more, and that's saying something. And the other part about it is that aside from that run, every time Brock held the Universal title or the WWE title over on Raw, you had a guy over on SmackDown carrying the championship, whether that be AJ Styles or whether that be Daniel Bryan. You always had a counterpart over on SmackDown carrying a world title, so at least we always knew that we would have at least one world championship constantly defended. And I think that's the biggest problem here. And I think, again, I'll speak personally here, I think that's the biggest reason why I've soured on Roman, is because they've hijacked both shows. And again, I think that for the most part, they've done a decent job of adhering to the brand split, aside from when a pay-per-view is closed, then it all just kind of all hell breaks loose. But they haven't completely gone away with the brand split. You still have 2 brand exclusive women's championships. You still have the IC and the US titles that are brand exclusive. So if you're still going with the brand split, why are you insisting on having Roman Reigns hijack both shows? Okay, the tag team titles are unified, but that at least makes sense because the Usos are present and having matches each and every week, and the tag team division is in a state right now where it probably isn't the worst thing to just make it one division. But the world titles, what's going on, especially when you consider all the great guys over on Monday Night Raw, like Seth Rollins, Lashley, although now he's holding the US title, they really need to split those world titles. It was a bad experiment. We knew it wasn't going to go well. And now they've had a proven sample size that they just need to split it.
And it's doing, I think I've said this to myself and when I've spoken with others, but it rings true because it I think speaks to the creative around all this. And maybe the decision, the reasons that led to the decision to have Roman carry both belts is, well, if he carries both belts, that means he has a whole roster to work with. I've said that. And he's going to be able to appear on both shows more often. And yet they have done the exact opposite with him. They have put him into hibernation. They and again, he's probably at home, and I don't blame Roman, himself. And I've said this, good for him. He's doing a fraction of the dates for more dollars, and he's more time with his family. Good for him. That's wonderful. I'm not jealous. I don't hate on that. That's a great place to be in your professional career when you've reached a point where they will pay you the same or more, and you work fewer dates and kill your body less. That good for him. But as a fan, you're looking at this and you're like, yeah, this is a point where I'm done with this, and the whole point with this, with the unification, like I just said, was to have him on air more, and they're doing the exact opposite with him, of having him appear less, barely on pay-per-views, and when he comes out, the matches, he's still a good performer, he's still a good wrestler, but I think as fans we're tired of the titles being held hostage at the expense of other guys getting an opportunity. That's the thing. Like Roman Reigns they've made their point, and they've done it excellently, and they have done it to a point where this will be a legendary run in the in WWE's modern era. It has absolutely been that, and one of the greatest heel turns in the modern era too. It's like mission accomplished, and now it's just overkill. Now it's not even like fans are like, I want to see somebody kick Roman's ass. They're just like, they've reached the point of exhaustion, of almost like indifference, where they're just like, all right, like, can we just please somebody just take it off of him? That's not a good place to be. They've gone past the point, and they've missed the mark. They've overshot their shot, if that makes sense. That's what they've done, and I think fans are just they're ready to move on. I'm ready to move on, and it's an experiment that worked, but now to me it's overkill. That's all.
And you were kind of late to turn on Roman, right?
Yeah, I hung on. Yeah.
But what was the breaking point for you?
When after I think they said that, and I saw in Trenton, New Jersey, I don't know how I remember that. It was the footage that came from a fan that said he's going into a new phase of his career. He was essentially just talking as Joe. I mean, just being himself, and had a house show. You can do that. No cameras, but. When he said he's going into a new phase of his career, and people speculated, oh, he's being fired, he's leaving WWE. Obviously, none of that was true. He re-signed. He just re-signed for fewer dates. And I think the breaking point was, I don't know if it was an exact day. I can't point to a specific day. It was just after I saw the result of his new contract, of what it looks like and feels like, with 2 belts being held by a guy that's never there and has defended it once since the beginning of April. I'm like, all right, yeah, like I'm finally on board with you guys. I held out because I understand that when we look back at this run with, historical lens, we're going to say, man, that was I think most of us will say that was a really good run for Roman, the run of his career, and it'll be talked about. But in the moment now, I'm done. And it was when that contract took effect and we started to see what that actually looked like, of him barely being on SmackDown, barely being at pay-per-views, no house shows. Like, then I'm like, it's set in with me there.
I just think it's gone way past the point of overkill. Like, we get it, we understand, and it's just like, even when he shows up now, like, I'm just like, oh, great, you finally decided to show up. And again, I think it's because he's hijacking both shows. Like, I think if he was just like he was in 2021 and like he was at the end of 2020 and exclusive over to SmackDown, and this isn't even to say that he has to wrestle, but just show up, and don't hijack the Raw World title. Like, it's just, You can't have just an absentee champion through and through.
That's the worst part. That if you're going to nail it down to one thing, it's if he was just still only Universal Champion and he was having this run, I'd say, okay, this is getting a little old, but hey, they have a champion on Raw that we can focus on, Seth or whoever the hell it is. You can have something to talk about there. And instead, we have, like you said, Roman. He's hammering a show that he's not even on, even though I guess he has the right to be on both shows. He still feels like a SmackDown exclusive. So yeah, that's the part I think fans take exception with. Beyond the people that say, oh, he's just been champion too long, is that he's affecting a show he's not even on, that in a negative way. And that's the WWE Championship. That is the biggest problem when people said, all right, I'm off the bench. Let's move on. And so, yep. All right. Well, any final thoughts or things that you wanted to say or ask before we wrap it up?
No, I think we covered it all. It's just, it feels like every show now I have to vent a bit about Roman Reigns, and I'm sorry about that.
And I know it's deserving, and before we used to praise it, and it's just gotten to the point now where, I mean, WWE may say, somebody would make the argument out there that it's, this heel heat. See, you'd pay to see, you pay money to see him get his ass kicked. I'm like, no, I actually, like, until somebody comes along that's a true challenger, I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, a lot of fans are tuning out. Tuning out and getting angry are two different things. Heel heat
is a bad thing.
Yeah, indifference, and people telling me they want to change the channel. That is not heel heat. Heel heat is when you're angry. Like, that person on screen makes you want to see, you want to punch them in the face. That's not where Roman's at for most people now. It's more of just, can we please just take the belts off him to give other guys a chance? You're affecting other guys' careers in a real way right now. Not kayfabe, like for a shoot, like for real. You are affecting other men's careers right now by barely being there. I mean, I guess somebody out there would make the argument, oh, the U.S. and Intercontinental are getting more airtime, and that's true. But again, at what expense? At what expense? Somebody, not getting an opportunity with the WWE Championship. So, all right. Well, Anthony, a lot of fun as always. Certainly it turns into a Roman Reigns rant one way or the other the last several weeks. So, it is good stuff. So, before we go though, let everyone know where they can find you and what your last show was. I believe it was the era of SmackDown, the SmackDown Live. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so obviously ADeMarco25 on Twitter as always, but yeah, I drop a rivalry, or no, not rivalries anymore, rebranded as WWE
I said
Retro.
the same thing this week, yeah.
And I covered the SmackDown Live era that was 2016 to 2019, a little over 3 years. And I don't know if you got a chance to listen to it, Matt, but I just thought it was cool to go look back at a very unique time in WWE history. That was kind of like the in-between era, in my opinion, of the PG and the era we now know as today. I don't know what it's called anymore, maybe reality, who knows. And I just thought that when SmackDown kind of got revived, right? Because from 2010 to 2016, it really was the B show. Nobody watched SmackDown. I know that I didn't watch SmackDown. It wasn't necessary to watch SmackDown back in those years if you just wanted to keep up with storylines. There wasn't a lot of storyline advancement on SmackDown in the early 2010s. And it was just cool to see SmackDown finally go live after 17 years in existence and really see it catapulted into probably now the A show in a lot of ways. And, the SmackDown Live, the house that AJ Styles built, the infamous WWE Championship run of Jinder Mahal, Dean Ambrose's only WWE Championship run, the Planet's Champion era with Daniel Bryan. Just a lot of really cool things happened on SmackDown. And it helped catapult it into what we now know is probably the A show. So, yeah, really cool period in the history for WWE.
Yeah, it was. No, I got a chance. It's a fun listen because you bring some of these things up and it's worth going back because after the pandemic, the pandemic was just like a black hole for most people. And, before the pandemic era, people kind of forget what was on the show. And this is obviously a few years before that happened. And it's a fun look back. And Daniel Bryan with the hemp belt, people forget how good that was. And all these things that certainly helped shape SmackDown during a time, like you said, where it was almost kind of a forgettable. It was like basically a glorified Sunday Night Heat or a glorified main event or Superstars or wherever, where like you said, you could kind of miss the show and still stay on track with what's going on in WWE. And certainly a time that I think it doesn't get enough admiration. And you did a good job of being able to bring that to our forefront. And I'd really recommend everyone take a listen to Retro that takes place every single Friday here on the WWE podcast. So, Anthony, thanks so much for joining us, buddy. We will talk next week.
Appreciate it, man. Take it easy.
You too.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.